we're going to learn how to set up a Git repository using the SHA-256 hashing algorithm. Now Git, throughout its history, by default, has always used the SHA-1 algorithm, and then after that produced some security concerns, they started an initiative to also support the SHA-256 algorithm, which exports a larger digest than the SHA-1 algorithm and is more secure. So I've got a SHA-1 project in here. I'm going to cd into that. This is the default. If I cat the .git/config file, it's going to show you the repository format version is 0. Now that's kind of important because you cannot use the SHA-256 algorithm if the format version is 0. You need the format version to be 1. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to make a new directory called SHA-256 project. I'm going to cd into that. And I'm going to supply a flag here. So it's really this simple. I'm going to say git init. I'm going to say -- object format equals SHA-256. Now the only options you're allowed to give this flag are SHA-1 or SHA-256, just like this. So SHA-256, and don't believe I need to do anything else. So let me just hit enter, and I think we should be good. I'm going to split my screen here so we can kind of compare. So let me go into YouTube directory here. I'll do the SHA-1 project on my right. I'm going to cat the .git config again. This is what we saw earlier. I'll come back here, and I'm going to say cat git config as well there. So comparing the two here, you can see that by default there was an extensions section added to the config, and with the object format, which is the key and value of the flag that we specified. So the core ones are very similar, except that format version which we showed you earlier. So in order to use the 256 hashing algorithm, you have to specify the format version as 1. Now you can go in here and you can just edit these manually. If you don't do it in the right sequence, you might get some Git errors that are saying, hey, it needs to be 1, you can't use this. So the easiest thing to do would be right when you start the repository, but you can do it and kind of force it later if you want. Now there is one other way, so I'm just going to split this one more time, and let me go into YouTube here, and let me just make one all again. So I'm going to make another directory, and I'm going to call it SHA-256 project, and I'll just say version 2. Why not? Okay, so let me go into that, and go into version 2 there. And the second way I can initialize this, I'm going to give it a little more space, is by supplying not the flag, but an env variable. So I'm going to say git default hash. I think that's what it is. I'm going off memory here. I could be wrong. 256. Git default hash, and I'm going to say git init. So let's see if I was right. And I was. Awesome. Okay. Sweet. So the two ways you can do it, let me go back up a little bit, is you can give it this flag, -- object format SHA-256, or you can give it this env variable git default hash. If you don't do either of those, it's just going to be format repository format version 0, and it's not even going to specify one of those extension configs at all. I'm going to exit out of this middle one because we don't really care about that. And let me just show you the comparison. Let me add a file here. So I'll just actually echo hello world. Cool. And let me add that. Sweet. Now, I'm going to show you that really both of these projects on my left and my right have the exact same file. So let me do this. And I think those are exactly the same. Let me just verify that. So I'll say hello text, and I'll do the hex dump command. Oop, finger slipped there, so hex dump. And let's do the same here. Okay, 6548, 6C, 6E. Ends in 08. Yep, both have E there. Okay, great, wonderful. Same amount of bytes there, same bytes exactly. So these are the exact same commits that I made. But now let me do a git log here and a git log here. You can see the difference. The one on my right is by default. This is a 40 character digest here. And so the SHA-1 hashing algorithm, let me make sure I get this right, it outputs a 160-bit digest. Now there's 40 characters here, and that's because each one of these represents 4 bits. So 4 times 40 is 160. So basically, each bit can go, or each set of 4 bits can go up to, I believe, 15. And that's why this goes from 0 to F. So 0 to 15 here. And the SHA-256 algorithm outputs a 256-bit hash, as the name implied. And I want to say this is, let me just add this up here. So do this. 64, right. And so 64 times 4 is 256. And so it's the same idea there. Great. So that is the difference between the SHA-1 project and the SHA-256 project. So the objects are going to be much longer and using the SHA-256 hashing algorithm and probably more secure. So that's how you can start a local repository. Now, just a word of caution with this. The full SHA-1 to SHA-256 support in Git is still under development. In fact, a lot of development looks like it's been stalled for the last year and a half, since 2023. At the time I'm making this video, maybe by the time you're watching it, all that development work will be finished. But right now, there's not a great way to go between a SHA-1 Git project and a SHA-256 Git project. And it's one of those things where you got to start off. The easiest way is to start off with one or the other. And then the tricky part is finding a remote repository Git service that will support the SHA-256. At the time I'm recording this, it appears that GitHub does not support that, but there are other platforms that can host your remote repositories that do support that, or I guess you could just self-host them and set it up yourself. But that's at least a simple way that you can create a new Git repository using the SHA-256.